morning. Good morning. Again. I bet most of you have read the Four Agreements. How many people have read the Four Agreements? Oh, okay, there's quite a few that haven't. I want to share with you my experiences with this book anyway. This is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. As I visited this work in preparation for the presentation, I found there's now a fifth agreement. I think this book dropped off the bestseller list, and Don Miguel needed an excuse for making another book. So he came up with the fifth agreement. One of the things I liked about the Four Agreements that there was only four. Getting to five is a bit tough to remember. When people ask me what the Four Agreements are, I usually only come up with three. And all these things that are 7 or 10, like commandments and stuff, are just too difficult. So I'm going to just stick with 4 today, and I haven't even read the fifth one, so we'll continue with that. But the church I attended in Cincinnati, the minister gave 4 sermons on consecutive weeks, one on each of the Four Agreements. And at the same time, we had small groups each week that did reading and discussion of the Four Agreements. And the whole thing ended up with an all-day workshop where we actually had Don Miguel Ruiz as the workshop leader. So it was a pretty impactful experience for me. And it impacted on my journey of personal growth and did a lot to shape my worldview. So what I want to do today is to share some of that experience that I got from all of this work with the Four Agreements. So, the first thing about my worldview, how that got shaped. The way I see it, there's 3 great questions in life. Why are we here? How should we live? And what happens when we die? And the Four Agreements try to help us answer the second question, how should we live? Heaven and hell are here on earth. There's not something in the afterlife. It's one of the big problems I have with most of the religions, that they tell you to spend your life and waste it whilst preparing yourself for some future life that really doesn't exist, which is a terrible tragedy. We all live somewhere on that spectrum between heaven and hell, from heavenly bliss to hellish suffering. And the most important thing that impacts on where we are on that spectrum from is heaven to hell, or bliss to suffering, is the quality of our relationships with friends and with significant others, and most importantly with ourselves. Where we are on the spectrum, how well our relationship works is entirely due to our own thoughts, beliefs and agreements. It's got nothing to do with what's going on in the world, what's happening to us, or what the people we're in relationship with are doing. We can't change the world, and we can't change other people. We can only change how we react to the world. How many people are sailors, boaters? Not very many. Gosh, in Oriental, everybody would have put their hands up. But an analogy that appeals to sailors is you cannot change the wind. You can only change the way you trim your sails. Trimming your sails well gives you a pleasant, fast voyage to your destination. You even win some races sometimes. Now, sail trim is a skill that can be learned through teaching and practice. Similarly, reacting most effectively to the world can be learned through teaching and practice. And the Four Agreements are a way of helping us trim the sails of life, improve the way we react to the world, and move us towards bliss and away from suffering. And I found the Four Agreements the simplest, most effective way of doing that for myself. Now, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. I'm an atheist, and I like that definition of God much more than that in the world of religions. I can deal with God being the Word. Most scientists agree that development of language started about 100,000 years ago. Just a blink in the 13 billion years of the existence of the universe. Now, Homo sapien was the first species to have a brain with the capacity to develop a sophisticated language. It was this sophisticated language ability that differentiated Homo sapiens, or humans, from the rest of life. And I argue and believe that language was the basis for consciousness, culture, and civilization. I know many of you will argue that animals have language too. They do, but it's extremely simple. Not enough to enter kindergarten, let alone get a PhD. Now, this differentiation that we humans got from language came with a price. When animals make a mistake, they only suffer once. Humans, when they make a mistake, can suffer guilt, remorse, and regret for the rest of their lives. We're all familiar with the little voice in our heads that is continually and forever giving us advice and telling us what to do. Usually bad advice about the wrong things to do. This little voice could not exist without language. Language enables thoughts like guilt, remorse, and regret to exist. This conversation with ourselves is the root cause of all the suffering we impose on ourselves. And what the Four Agreements does is help us with that conversation with ourselves. They're one of the many ways of changing that conversation and improve our lives. And I found them, as I've said, to be the most effective, personally for me and helping with my coaching clients. Now, the lizard brain continues to exist under that sophisticated language using human frontal cortex. And that lizard brain is the source of greed, envy, lust, jealousy, anger, and all the other deadly sins and dysfunctional emotions that we continually have to attempt to overcome with our intellectual brains. This conflict is the source of all the problems we have in doing what we know is best for us. Fear of not being good enough causes us to put on a mask that we think will please others. We're afraid to be ourselves. It's frightening to challenge our own dysfunctional agreements, like I'm not good enough. We've lived with them so long and been indoctrinated with them from childhood. Making some new agreements helps us to move forward with our lives. The first of the four agreements is be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. Impeccable means without sin. I had to look it up. Sin in this sense is anything that goes against yourself. The agreement is to never use words that go against yourself. Words are very powerful. Using words is how you manifest everything in your life and create the events in your life. The word can set you free or enslave you. The word can bring you happiness or misery. Some words cannot be unsaid. Those words, once uttered, can have a lasting, damaging effect on your relationship with others and with yourself. Being impeccable with your word is about how you relate with the people that are significant in your life. And most importantly, how you relate with yourself. Being impeccable with your word means not saying or believing things that go against yourselves as simply not true, like I'm not good enough. It means not saying things that would damage your relationship with others. Everyone is imperfect. We have to accept ourselves as the imperfect beings we are, just like we have to accept the wind. We can trim our sails and improve our lives by altering the conversation we have with ourselves. We can challenge the little voice that we always hear in our head when they're saying negative things about ourselves that just aren't true. Being impeccable with your word is about taking responsibility for your actions, but not blaming yourself when you make less than perfect choices. And of course, it's about telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you the word. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. Don't take anything personally. It's not about you. Everybody else is doing their own thing for their own personal reasons in accordance with their own beliefs and agreements, which are probably quite different from yours. What others do is not intended to hurt you or impact you in any other way. When we see others for who they are and know and love who we are, nobody can hurt us. And we can ask for what we want without fear of rejection. We can say yes or no to what we really want and never be hurt. What causes us to be trapped is belief in our personal importance. It's all about me, me, me. You take it personally when you agree with whatever is said. If you say to me, Peter, that presentation was awful, it won't bother me. I know it's good. If you don't get it, that's your problem. If somebody says, Peter, you're stupid, I don't take it personally. I know I'm not stupid. The truth is that person has tried to send me poison, but I'm not going to eat it. Take it personally makes you easy prey for anyone's negativism. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Making assumptions is probably the biggest damager of relationships. And this is the agreement that I personally have the most trouble keeping. I tend to assume the worst. Then think that whatever the truth will be a pleasant surprise. And that's the worst kind of dysfunctional thinking. We assume our partner knows what we want and get upset when they don't give it to us. We assume our partner knows what we think and get upset when they don't read our minds. We assume the intent of our partner's actions or inactions as being something that's detrimental to us. When we believe something, we assume we're right, to the point where we will destroy relationships to defend our position. We assume everybody sees the world the same way we do and cannot understand why they interpret events differently. We're afraid to show who we really are because we assume that the real us will be judged negatively. We enter relationships assuming we'll be able to change something and are disappointed when we can't. Instead of just making assumptions, what we need to do is to ask questions until we find out whether our assumptions are true and what the truth really is. The fourth agreement is always do your best. Always do your best. Our best will vary depending on our health and energy. Our best may not be very good, especially when we're tired or sick. This does not matter. If we always do our best, whatever that best might be at the time, there'll be no reason for us to feel guilt or blame ourselves for our actions. We did our best. There's some things each of us are not very good at. It's the way we are, accept it, and be okay with it. I tried to learn to play golf 3 times, took lessons, but I wasn't very good at it. And I have a hang-up of being competent. If I'm not competent at something, I don't enjoy doing it. And playing golf was just misery. It's okay. I do something else instead. Never try to do more than whatever your best is in a particular task or circumstance. It just leads to frustration, exhaustion, and failure. The good news is that as you practice the first 3 agreements, your best will get better. Don't expect to get it right all the time. As we try to be impeccable with our word, we will frequently fail. As we try not to take it personally, we will frequently fail. As we try not to make assumptions, we will frequently fail. As we try to always do our best, we will frequently fail. Incorporating the 4 agreements into your life, like trimming sails, takes practice. The companion book to the 4 agreements is a big help in incorporating the 4 agreements into your life. If anybody wants to take on trying that, this is a really big help in doing it. It goes along with it and gives you some exercises you can do to figure out what the agreements you have are and what your beliefs are and how you might want to change them. Persevering and accepting your lack of perfection and keeping on working on the 4 agreements will slowly improve your relationship with others and, more importantly, with yourself. Slowly, you will move a little nearer to heaven. Thank you.